What's up YouTube, how goes it? Welcome to another episode. Today we're having a look at the latest iteration of the ever so popular Lenovo Ideapad 3. Now Lenovo's always drunk when it comes to their marketing and branding for their models. Depending on the region you're in, this laptop is also referred as to Lenovo Ideapad 3i, not to be confused with the gaming 3i. With that being said, what's important is the configuration. The configuration we have on board for this model here is rocking Intel's latest 11th generation Core i5 processor, 8GB of DDR4 RAM. Additionally, we have a 1TB hard drive plus a 256GB solid state drive. Also, we have the latest Wi-Fi and Bluetooth standards on board. It's also worth noting this is the 15-inch model, which has a full HD display on board. Of course, we're going to answer the ultimate question of whether or not this laptop is worth your hard-earned cash, what it got right, where it dropped the ball, and of course, to see if it belongs in your office, home, or wherever you plan to use this thing. As always, if you guys enjoyed this video, hit that like button, consider subscribing to my channel. We're so close to 10k subs, all thanks to your support. So thanks again, let's go. Starting off with a quick unboxing, you can see that the latest iteration of the Ideapad 3 looks just as lame in that cardboard boxing, and that's pretty standard for most PC laptops, unfortunately. Beyond that, once you remove the content seal itself, inside you'll find a few items. First and foremost, of course, the laptop itself, which is very neatly packed in a lot of protective packaging. Once you remove all that, here it is, the Lenovo Ideapad 3i, and it looks quite nice. Beyond that, of course, you have a 65-watt 2-in-1 charging adapter, meaning basically the wall outlet piece and the actual adapter are one body piece. Unfortunately, you still do have a proprietary charging adapter, so no USB-C charging out of the box. Beyond that, of course, you have a quick start guide, instruction manual, and your usual warranty and regulation information. Now, as you can see, we have the Ideapad 3 in the Abyss Blue color, and honestly, it looks pretty nice as far as the tone goes. Now, build quality on the Ideapad 3 isn't bad, but it's nothing to write home about either. It weighs approximately 3.6 pounds, which is relatively light for its 15-inch class weight, but the reason for this is because almost the entire laptop is made of hard TPU or plastic materials. So starting off at the top side, you have a smooth textureless surface, which actually feels nice to the touch, but you can tell right away this is your traditional plastic material. You also have the Lenovo badge towards the side of the laptop, and that's pretty much everything as far as the top side goes. As we make our way to the side of the laptop, I/O port diversity is a mixed bag, so you have plenty of ports, but some of them are somewhat outdated. So you have a DC jack port, you also have a full-size HDMI port, a USB 3.0 port, a non-Thunderbolt USB-C port, and a good old headphone jack. On the other side, you have a outdated USB 2.0 port. Thankfully, you do have a full-sized SD card reader slot and 2 indicator lights. As you make your way to the bottom of the laptop, again, the hard TPU material continues. You have this long line vent, basically for cool air intake. And you'll also notice on either corner of the bottom side, you have 2 speaker grills. So this is in fact a stereo speaker setup, and we'll be doing a brief sound test later on in the video. As soon as you unfold this laptop, the first thing you notice is the ample amount of palm rest space, which is expected on a 15-inch laptop. Although I can say I'm the biggest fan of that left skewed trackpad positioning, it's a little too awkward for me. With that being said, the trackpad is decent in quality. The clicks are fairly tactile, and the surface, while made of plastic, doesn't necessarily feel cheap or flimsy. It's also worth noting that there is a little bit of imbalance when you click on any side of the trackpad, but it's still a lot better than some of the competition. One thing Lenovo almost always seems to nail with its modern laptops is the keyboard, and this is another fantastic keyboard. So you have fantastic key travel, you'll find that you have plenty of surface area on each keycap, so you will not be making any typos, and also you'll find that the clicks are nice and tactile when you press on any given keystroke. With that being said, this is a fully backlit keyboard, and the backlighting is pretty nice. Also, because this is the 15-inch model, you have a full-size 10 keypad. Keep in mind, smaller models will not have this. You'll also like the fact that the power button on top of the keyboard also serves as a fingerprint scanner, which is actually not that common in this category of laptops. So good job, Lenovo. The hinge quality on the Ideapad 3 is mediocre at best, so there is a fair bit of wobble no matter what position you have the laptop on. It's also worth noting you can't open this with a single hand, and Lenovo could have definitely done a better job there. Now, as far as display fitting goes, you have a relatively thin chin and forehead, and also the bezels are pretty narrow that are more or less in line line with 2021 standards. Unfortunately, you get a highly mediocre 720p webcam. I can't be too harsh on Lenovo though, because it seems still to be an industry standard in 2021, so it's okay for Zoom calls, but you're not winning any beauty contests with it. I swear to God, I think Lenovo literally has an accountant making their displays, because these displays are just not designed for creativity whatsoever. No offense to anyone who's in accounting, you guys are awesome. With that being said, you have a modest resolution of 1080p, a 60Hz refresh rate, which is all decent. But where things start getting messy is the fact that you only have a sRGB rating of 51%, which is just outright awful. Colors look washed out, they're super bleached, and you cannot use this laptop for any sort of creativity intensive tasks like photo, video editing, or color grading, because it just looks way too washed out. So creative users, keep an eye out for that. Also, you have a peak brightness of 300 nits, which all things considered isn't actually that bad. This laptop is fine for most indoor settings and it does okay in outdoor settings. Thankfully, you also have a anti-glare or matte finish screen, which does further help in providing less reflections on the screen overall. Performance on the Lenovo Ideapad 3 or 3i is very interesting. So any day-to-day task that Core i5 processor just rips right past, whether it's web browsing, watching a video on the internet, or doing some good old word processing. However, I really wanted to push this laptop to its limit, so of course I installed DaVinci Resolve 17 and did some bare 4K video editing. I found there were a fair bit of frame drops. It's still technically a viable experience, but you definitely notice that. I feel like the 8GB of RAM is a bit of a bottleneck, but having more RAM might fix that issue to some extent. Gaming on this laptop is actually quite respectable given it's running an integrated graphics chipset. So I was able to get 30 plus FPS consistently on GTA 5 at high settings, which again is not too shabby. Of course, some of you guys want to know just how hot this laptop can get. Well, at its absolute peak, we found this laptop hit a CPU temperature of approximately 88 degrees Celsius, at which point it starts thermal throttling. However, we found that at high lows, it had a sustained temperature of about 74 degrees Celsius, which isn't that bad all things considered. And if you're using it at a low or idle state, it'll be well below the 60 degrees Celsius mark. So overall, it's not a super hot laptop. It is worth noting you only have a single cooling fan on this laptop, but it doesn't get too loud and is within the realm of reasonability. Lenovo claims you can get up to 10 hours of battery life on a single charge. In my real world test, I found you get about 7.5 hours at 50% brightness, using the speakers occasionally, doing some web browsing, watching 1080p videos, and even doing some resource intensive activities like the occasional video editing. Again, this is more or less within the industry standards, but the battery life really doesn't shine here compared to the competition. Speaker quality on the Ideapad 3 and 3i is decent but not great. So you do have two bottom firing speakers in a stereo setup, and you actually get modestly loud volume levels, but there is a fair bit of distortion at higher levels. Have a quick listen for yourself. So here's a power summary of the review. Priced at approximately $899 USD, the Lenovo Ideapad 3 or 3i is definitely what I consider to be a mid-range laptop, and I wouldn't go as far as calling it as a budget laptop given that price point. Of course, with that being said, I feel like Lenovo does pull a fair bit of its punches with this machine. So starting off with the good stuff, you have one of the best keyboards I've seen in class, a decent trackpad. The speakers, while not fantastic, aren't bad either, but overall this machine is really good in the performance department. There's not a whole lot of thermal throttling. It runs a whole lot cooler than a lot of the competition in this price point, and it's respectable performance overall. Getting onto the negative stuff, and there are a few visible aspects that make this machine a little less desirable than the competition. First and foremost, that cheap build quality. So there are plenty of laptops like Dell Inspiron that have way more premium material in terms of their build quality. The Ideapad 3 consists entirely of a hard TPU build. The hinge quality is lackluster, and I generally found this laptop could have had a better build quality, again given its price point. Also, the biggest weakness of this laptop has to be its display. 51% sRGB in 2021 should just just be illegal. I find it's disrespectful to the user to give such a lackluster display. If you are a creative user, you cannot use this display for those kind of needs. Although it is worth noting, if you don't have a lot of creative usage, the display, generally speaking, will be more than sufficient for your day-to-day needs. Overall, I think this isn't a bad laptop. I just think the Lenovo Ideapad 3i definitely cuts a fair bit of corners that makes it less of an ideal proposition than it could be, again, given that price point. So hopefully this review helps you make up some of your mind. I know sometimes you end up being more confused after the review, but again, keep in mind some of the key aspects I mentioned, and hopefully they'll guide you in the right direction. As always, if you guys enjoyed this review, hit that like button, consider subscribing to my channel. We're so close to 10K subscribers at the time of this video. All thanks to you guys. Thank you for your support. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.